Welcome back. Week 2 is basically in the books at this point, and hopefully you've done well. Your team's won, you've dominated the competition, and you watched our waiver wire video last week to find some gold for this week's lineup. If you didn't, we're giving you another chance. We're back with your Week 3 waiver wire pickups from the IDP side. Thank you for those many, many thousands that have been watching the offensive video. Hopefully that helped you. If you have questions about offensive or defensive waiver wires, always rotoheat.com. We got articles. We got a Discord that's free you can jump into and ask your questions to our team and the community. We got lots of people that have been jumping in there and growing that, so we thank everybody. With that being said, we're just going to dive into it. Let's talk about some linebackers. Kraig, who are our ones this week, and what do you like about them?
Yeah, so a lot of these guys have names that you've heard over the past week, starting with Deablo. He's a converted college safety for Virginia Tech. We've talked about him in the show that we do in the offseason before. He started off the year as pretty much a full-time player for the Raiders with a 94% snap share in week 1 and then 100% share in week 2. So Denzel Perriman, who was sort of the main guy in the middle, went down, but that really didn't change a whole lot for Deablo, what he was doing. He has 10 solos and 12 assists, which is just fantastic for a guy that, we were expecting to get tackles as a linebacker. He's still learning the position. There's going to be ups and downs, but he's showing some promise for a linebacker. He's really athletic. He has great size. So I was really surprised when I saw it's like under 2% pretty much across all platforms with his rostership. Mm-hmm. So he's a guy that's pretty much widely available unless you're in really deep leagues. And he's certainly a guy, especially if Perriman's out for any extended period of time, he's a guy that's at the top of our list, along with Saints linebacker Pete Werner, who we know a couple of people brought up in the comments last week, and he was on our list then, and we kind of wanted to see, it's his first time this year sort of going into that starter role right off the bat. He was rookie last year, and Demario Davis is still the main guy there as far as the leader on that defense for the linebackers. He's got 100% snap share both of the past 2 weeks, but Pete Werner has shown that he's going to be that second linebacker now. He's got an 80.6% snap share in week 2, and he had an 81.3 in week 1. So, he's a clear linebacker 2 in terms of snap share, but he's producing better than Demario Davis. Werner's got 18 solos, 3 assists, a pass defended, and a forced fumble. To Davis's 6 solos, 6 assists, a pass defended, and fumble recovery. I kind of expect it to even out as the season goes on, but what it shows is Pete Werner should be rostered, and he's probably the most rostered guy already of everyone that we're talking about. So if he isn't available in your league, go get him, because on like ESPN, Yahoo, he's in double digits already.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and Pete Werner is a guy that we did a short on last week because not only did we have him on our list, so he was kind of a fringe guy, but he's one of those that, it looks better if you grab him the week before all the other guys are trying to get him, and be ahead of the competition. He's got a lot of talent, a lot of value, and all these guys on the list do. I think, Morrow is another guy that I think could be really productive for the rest of the season and help you out if he's not owned in your leagues. What do you think about Frankie Luvu? He's one that as we were building this list, I saw it and was like, I don't know how I feel about him. I feel like I want another week of production out of him before I really get excited about trying to grab him.
The thing to me is, the coaching staff, however long you think Matt Rule is going to be there and what's going to happen with that coaching staff if they continue to perform poorly. We saw it last year. They had guys, like Jermaine Carter was one that had like an 88% snap share on the year. They have these guys besides Shaq Thompson that come in that are kind of out of the blue for the fantasy community. Uh-huh. And I think Frankie's the guy this year because he's already edging out Shaq Thompson. I know it's only 2 weeks, but it's the start of the year. It means something. And he's got the green dot. He's the play caller for the defense. So he's going to be out on the field. He's got a 90.2% snap share to Shaq Thompson's 83.01. And he's got 15 solos, an assist, and a pass deflection. So he's getting the tackles while he's out there. I don't think he's going to be a linebacker 1 in the year. Probably not going to be, a linebacker 2 most weeks, but he's going to have viability, and especially as you're getting to those bench spots where most of the guys that you're picking up are going to be spot starters filling in for injuries on your team. You should hopefully, unless you just, went 0 LB, as you could probably call it for IDP, just, going with pure waiver wire guys, maybe he does start for you. But for most teams, he's going to be a bench type guy, and I think he's perfectly fine, and he's shown viability to be a spot starter for teams.
Yeah, bye-week fill-in would be a perfect spot for him.
All right, you mentioned Morrow, just so we have it on there. He's got 100% snap share, just like Roquan Smith. His stat line's almost the same as Roquan Smith. Bears offense is awful. The defense is going to be out there a lot, and he should be rostered too.
Yep, for sure. All right, so moving on to the secondary, we've got three safeties and a cornerback here. And most of these names are guys that you've heard of, minus Forrest and Fenton. Those are guys that may be a little bit newer to some of you in the IDP world, but Phillips and Donovan Wilson have been around for a couple of years. Both have been fine veterans, but they're definitely showing a little bit more use this year. Guys that I definitely agree we probably should be targeting. What's your take on these players?
So Adrian Phillips, this is his third year with the Patriots. His first year in 2020, he was a defensive back around 10 or so in most leagues. And the year after that, he was around, 30 to 35. So, more of a safety or defensive back, it would be 3. But he has a viability in the system, and Bill Belichick likes those versatile players. Phillips can play all over the place. The thing with putting Phillips on there is Kyle Duggar went out with a knee injury in the second quarter, and he did not return. Jabril Peppers, people got excited about him. He had signed a 1-year deal, and he got on the field making some plays. But he really didn't play any different than he did in week 1 to week 2. He had about a 30% snap share both weeks. Phillips jumped up a lot, and it seems like he's the guy that they trust because he knows the system. Patriots going to have to win games here. They're sort of on the hot seat in that division, the way things are going with the upstart Jets, their comeback victory, and the Dolphins going nuts, the Bills going nuts. They're going to have to keep pace. I think Bill's going to rely on the guy that he knows. So it sounds like Phillips is going to be the starter, so I'd keep an eye on him. Same thing with Donovan Wilson in terms of injury. Jaron Kearse is going to miss at least, 1 to 3 more games, they say. Wilson was a starter for Dallas in 2020, but he took a backseat last year to Kearse, who had that breakout year. Looking at Wilson, he had an 82.3% snap share once Jaron got hurt, and he was up to 100% last week 2, with 6 solos and 2 assists. He's a fine replacement with Kearse out. He isn't Kearse, who I like a lot. You see an article over at rotoheat.com if you go look back for that. But he'll be a fine replacement with the Cowboys defense. Probably going to be on the field a lot too.
Yeah. And we do appreciate you guys hanging out. If you got to this point in the video before we get to the defensive linemen, we would love if you like, subscribe, share the content with a friend. If you have questions, drop them in the comments. Kraig and I and the team will keep an eye on those and try to get back to you as quickly as we can. If you want more immediate responses, again, rotoheat.com, go to our Discord, and you can ask the questions immediately. And we're all in the chats most of the day when our notifications are on. We try to be there regularly. With that being said, these videos we try to give you guys that are not as owned highly. When you get to the cornerback position, that's probably going to look a little different every week because we constantly are saying you're going to want to churn the cornerback and find the best matchups. And that's why Rashad Fenton is this week's cornerback pickup because of his lack of ownership and the potential matchup. Is there anything special about Fenton that you think really helps him potentially go off big this week?
So he's getting the snaps. He's got about an 86% snap share on the year as a cornerback too. If you're in a shallow league that does require cornerbacks, I can't imagine there's a lot of those out there, but yes, there are leagues. There's plenty of them that do require cornerbacks for us fantasy football degenerates. L'Jarius Sneed is the preferable guy of the cornerbacks, but in most leagues where you need one, he's going to be rostered already. Mm-hmm. So Fenton's the cornerback too there. On the year, he's got 9 solos, 2 assists, and a pass deflection. And they played the Colts this week. Through 2 weeks, the Colts are second in points allowed to opposing cornerbacks. That's really on the heels of Matt Ryan's 4 interceptions and 80 pass attempts over the first 2 games. Chiefs are going to have a high-powered offense, as we've seen still. The Colts are going to have to keep up with them, and I think the opportunity is going to be there for a guy that just isn't rostered.
Absolutely. All right, so rounding out with our defensive linemen, we got 2 DNs and 2 D tackles. Both of them, all 4 of them are not necessarily household names. I mean, DJ Reader's a guy that's been around for a little bit. You saw him originally with the Texans, now with Cincy, and he's a bit of a name. But otherwise, what do we like about these defensive linemen?
So one of them is due to injury. It's Alex Wright, defensive end for the Cleveland Browns. So Jadeveon Clowney went out with an ankle injury. He was on our list last week, and he had a nice game before he got hurt through solos, a sack, forced fumble recovery, but he's going to be out. And Chase Winovich, who also had 43% of the snaps in the D-line last week, he's going to be out too. They play a Thursday night game, and they've already announced that Alex Wright should be starting for him. He's a 3rd-round pick out of UAB in 2022. He's got 2 solos and 2 pass defense on just like a 38% snap share, but that's going to go up. I think he beat that average just playing last week. It was on 43% or something like that. So he'll be seeing the field. He's going to have opportunity in a game where people are going to be running the ball a lot on both sides. The Browns against Steelers, and neither team, I think, is going to be lighting up the world because they're not going to have to keep up with each other. So there's going to be opportunities for tackles for a loss. It's a complete surprise to me this year, but sometimes we run into that. Maybe it only lasts for a few weeks, but Jihad Ward, defensive end linebacker, depending on your league. But on ESPN, Yahoo, and Sleeper, he does have defensive line eligibility. He's got an 89% snap share, which is crazy when you're talking about a defensive lineman. Leonard Williams, he got injured and probably going to be out still, so there's going to be more snaps there too. But in 2 games, he's got 8 solos, 2 assists, which is nothing amazing. They're playing the Cowboys, who still, despite their game against the Bengals, have a banged-up offensive line, and I don't think it's going to be a pretty game on either side of the ball. So there's going to be some opportunity for him with that snap share he's getting. Going to your defensive tackles, you mentioned DJ Reader. He was a big signing by the Bengals in free agency and then got hurt right away. Yep. He's doing all right in terms of snap share, 66 and 60% the first 2 weeks, but he's got 7 solos, an assist, a tackle for a loss, a fumble recovery. And they're playing the Jets this week, who give up the most points to opposing defensive tackles. So it's a mix of doing all right for production, not of being a world beater, but he's going to be in a great situation. And then it's sort of the same thing here with Justin Jones, who is our other defensive tackler for the Chicago Bears. 62.5% snap share on the year. This week, they're going to be playing the Texans, who are 7th in points allowed to opposing defensive tackles. We already mentioned the Bears' offense isn't great. Neither is the Texans, really. Probably going to be a lot of running the ball. And he's going to get an opportunity to build off of that 6 solos, 4 assists that he has on the year. So, again, we've talked about in prior years, but for defensive tackles, you want to be looking at guys that just get you those baseline, that floor of tackles, that where you're getting that guaranteed production, and anything else is a bonus at that point.
Absolutely. So there it is, folks. That is your week 3 waiver wires. We do appreciate everything. We do appreciate all the watches, all the likes, all the comments. You guys are amazing. We do thank you for hanging out with us as always. And you know where to find us. I already told you. So we will be back here again next week with week 4 waiver wires. And until then, good luck, and we'll see you then.